Just for you, a Quilt Conversations live highlight. The stories behind my story in Quiltfolk, a publication that features community quilt stories in the United States, state by state. Many of you got your copy before me, and if you're unfamiliar with Quiltfolk, there's no advertisements. It's all story, and it's a publication. It's not even really a magazine because it's more like a book. It's very thick, heavyweight paper, not the thin paper of magazines, and beautiful photos. They feature quilters and quilt organizations by state. So this is the state of Virginia. Maybe you have one for your state. If you don't, I recommend you get one. They have back issues if you're not a Virginian. So it was not only an amazing privilege to be asked, but to actually appear, it's just, I still can't believe it. You have to pinch me. Now, I have to be honest, when I first got it, I couldn't open it. I was so nervous. Why? Because of the story. What is the story that's told? How is the story told in photos? How is my story told in words? All right, here it is. First, I have to say that even though my family wasn't initially excited about the idea of photography, they didn't actually understand, I think, that you could make a career and a living at photography and or quilting. And it was important for me that eventually, as they understood more about photography and quilting, I didn't let that hinder me, their lack of understanding on that, from my goals. It also did not stop me from including them in things like this magazine. And so I really wanted the magazine, and I think it does. Quiltfolk focuses on my faith and my family. And when the photographer came, it was important for me, things that I made that were focused on my family and my faith were included, and they did so. And so I'm very pleased. And this is by far one of the biggest joys for me in this article is this photo. Not only do I love my smile, can I say that? I do. I love my smile. She did a good job with that. But this here, the verse on this says, "He makes all things beautiful in time." Think about the story of Hannah, how she suffered and cried for years because she couldn't have children. Now, eventually, when you read further on, she not only had one child, she had several more, boys and girls. So the Lord blessed her and gave her more children in time, in His perfect time. This is a bag that I designed and made, and I call it Aunt Baby's bag. My heart's desire was for my mom to be somewhere woven in this story, in this journey. And this bag, which is a pattern, if you want to make it, you can. I think some of my quilty friends have made it already. I know Wilda has one. It's a project bag. It opens up flat into a beautiful project bag. My mother's nickname from her nieces and nephew was Aunt Baby, because her sisters, her siblings, and her brother called her Baby. That was her nickname. So this is called Aunt Baby's bag, and it's a tribute to my mom, who loved bags. She had one armoire filled with bags. She had bags for every occasion. And I was pleased that in the caption, they included her full name, Amanda Mae Pouncey. She passed away a few years ago, in 2019. And so this opening page means a lot to me. So that's the story behind this photo. Let's see. And then this starts with the photos from my studio. Very small space, but somewhat organized. I think it looks like any other quilter space. I did take time to freshen it up just for the photos, and nothing like a photo shoot to get you organized. And then the beautiful sister quilt, the start of that and what that means to me. This is my sister. Everyone knows, we've talked about her, Roberta. And I knew that Quiltfolk always photographed quilters next to their machine. And I was in the middle of just finishing this project. This is the Pathways project. So I laid that out. And then I thought the night before, I need to have something on my long arm. What am I going to do? So I quickly put together a sandwich of one of my whole cloths. I didn't even start it the night before. I started quilting it the morning the photographers came. They were coming around 2 p.m. and I said, well, I'm going to start quilting it. And I'm going to use one of my techniques, which some of you have been in my class with, improv ruler quilting. And so when they came, they had something to photograph me with. And of course, I wanted to connect it with my beautiful sister series of whole cloth quilts. That's a new series. So that's the story behind this. If you've been following me on social media, you know that I've been sharing the process of completing her. She's now finished, but she was started the morning the photographers came to take pictures. Yes, that's right. She was started then. But this big whole cloth was inspired by the original beautiful sister quilt, which is this one right here. Now, we went in town into Old Town Fredericksburg, and it's an historic town. It has a lot of history, and we happened upon a building that has 2 plaques on it. And if you have the magazine, take time to read it because it's kind of interesting. We did not do this on purpose. It was just happenstance. And it has to do with, it's a law firm now that owns the building. But some people that use this building, it's an interesting story. So I'm going to encourage you to go try and read that and then get back to me about that. I'd love to know your thoughts on it. But she did a good job on that. And then she did some detailed photos. And each of these panels, in her afro, I stitched words: love, faith, hope. That was important to me. So again, connecting my faith. And this one has, oh my goodness, a long history. I made this many years ago. Again, this is a whole cloth with 1 applique doily. When I was a student of free motion, one of the things that I did, and this is an example, is that I would participate in challenges. I would say, okay, maybe I don't know how to do this, but I'm going to learn. I'm going to practice. I'm going to get some fabric, and this fabric was on the free table at a guild meeting. Someone didn't want it anymore, and I picked it up because I'm always practicing. And the leaves are not appliqued. It's actually part of the fabric. Only the doily is. And the doily was given to me by another quilter. Back then, I was using a Janome 7700. I finally invested in a really good free motion quilting machine. I had used previous Janomes, but I wore it out. And then I learned about this new one, and it changed my quilting experience. And this was quilted on that. It was made for free motion, a machine made for that. And it has a lot of intricate stitching, all free motion. And it was a challenge. The quilter that gave like 6 of us a doily said, take the doily, quilt it, and it will be in an exhibit. So I did. I quilted it. All of us did. And it was the way she picked it, she put like a number in the hat or a name in the hat. I forget what it was. And my name came out as someone to receive the doily. That was one. Two, I quilted it. And of course, it's based on my faith. I am the vine. And here's the vine. Jesus is the vine, and we are the branches. You know, when we abide in him, that's when we produce fruit, when we stay connected to the vine. So this was another faith-based project, but it was also an opportunity to practice my free motion. So I finished it, and then it went on a tour. It toured the United States with the other 6 doilies that the ladies finished. And I think it was on about a whole year that this was on tour, it being exhibited. And it's someone who loves vintage linens. So that's the story behind this. And now this is in my sewing studio, my Studio B, and it hangs right above my computer table inside that same room. But this is my favorite piece. And ladies, you know what this means. This means Quilt Conversations Live. So that's what that's all about. I don't think I need to explain that, right? Often I will hang quilts that I've designed for magazines when I go live, and I make video tutorials. Some of the detailed photos, and this is another fabulous image, and it's personal to me. And we all have this. We all have something that was given to us by someone that has memory attached to it. No one else will know. I mean, and in the end, it could end up in a thrift store. You know, when my time on this earth is gone and my family is packing up my things, it might end up in a thrift store. Who knows? But these were specific gifts from people. Someone who knew I loved elephants. This camera, it's called a twin reflex camera. This is one of the cameras that I first learned on as a young photographer. And it was given to me by a well-known Harlem photographer, Austin Hanson. It's Kelly Klein. Kelly Klein has a Facebook page. She's an amazing free motion quilter, and I learned a lot from her when I was learning free motion. And she does a lot of things with linens and older quilts, vintage quilts. So yeah, that's where I got it. Kelly Klein with a C, I think it is. Yep. So Austin Hanson would taught me a lot in photography, taught me portraiture. He taught me darkroom techniques with black and white. His image collection is vast. He did a history of photos of Harlem. Every politician, celebrity you can think of, he did a photo of, whether it was during a parade or a lecture or a concert. And that collection is at the Schomburg Library of Social Research in Harlem. This is a camera that one was his, that he gave me, and it's the same camera that I took a portrait of him. So that camera is very important to me. Yeah. And next to it are 3 little elephants that were hand carved that a friend gave me when we took a trip to a state fair in California. But they're hand carved by a Mexican artist. This very specific nut that almost looks like ivory when it's dried out. It gets carved, and he used it and made these elephants. So that's some of the stories about these things that are important to me. So when I look at it, that's what I see. I see my mentor in photography. I see thoughtful family and friends. And some of you have taken my rainbow feathered class, and that's from that class, my time learning how to do feathers. And now I share the things that I've learned. Now this one is really, I'm going to zoom in for this one. If you don't have the magazine, I hope that you get it. Let me zoom in a little bit more. I was so pleased. I love elephants, if you haven't guessed that already. And this was part of the Hoffman Challenge. I did enter this into the Hoffman Challenge. I used their fabric with orange fabric. Stitched the elephant, all free motion. Remember, I used challenges to help me improve my free motion. But in this family, this is my niece, Amanda. She's now a mother of 2 and is a school teacher. She teaches at a private school in New York. And then there's my brother and his son. But this photo of Amanda is so precious to me. It's when she was about 5 years old. Her parents went off on vacation. I was babysitting her and her brother. And she was looking out the window, looking for her parents. And that's when I took this photo of her. And it just says so much. She missed her parents. She wanted to see them, but I took the time to just it's a rather big photo. I don't know if you can tell from this photo. And then my brother, let me go back. My brother with his son, AJ, they have the same name, but they called his son AJ for Arrington J. He's a junior. I went to go meet him to go spend time with my brother. He's in Houston, and he said, let's go to AJ's school. So we went to AJ's school so that I can meet AJ. I hadn't seen him in a long time, and I had a very short visit. So we went to his school, and right there at the school, I took that photo. I love that photo. Yeah. So family, yeah. And then, of course, this is the first in the series from the beautiful sister whole cloth quilts. One of the things that Quiltfolk did in this article is that they led with me winning a Pulitzer Prize. And it was for journalism. It was a team Pulitzer. They led with that. I think they did. Let me go back. Yes. After a successful career as a photojournalist with the Los Angeles Times, this is what the Los Angeles Times made for that Pulitzer. This sits on a shelf in my living room. Pulitzer Prize, Spot News, 1994 Northridge earthquake. This is my little trophy, if you will. This is something that they made and gave to every journalist that participated in documenting the news surrounding the Northridge earthquake. And, Wilton mentioned earlier about timing. At this time, when this earthquake happened, oh, great, Benita, you just ordered your copy. Wonderful. Awesome. I was an intern. I applied to become a photojournalist. I went to a recruiting event in New York. A friend who was a journalist, and he was working for a small community paper, and I started dabbling in photography at that time and wasn't sure if it was going to be commercial photography or journalism photography. So anyway, there I met an editor from the Los Angeles Times who was recruiting new young journalists for an internship program. And I applied to this program twice. The first time I didn't get it, but at the same event, I also applied to become an intern at a New York City newspaper, which I ended up getting. I got the internship at the New York City newspaper, which was owned by the same company that owned the Los Angeles Times. Then, after that internship at the New York City newspaper, I applied again So if you are seeking something and you don't get it the first time, don't give up. I applied again. I competed with 10 other photographers for one spot, one intern spot at the Los Angeles Times. They flew us out for a weekend. We competed, we took photos that weekend, told our story in front of a panel of 20 journalists. I stood in the middle of a room telling 20 journalists why I should be the photographer that they should pick to be an intern at a huge newspaper in Los Angeles. And I was picked. I left New York in the summer, I think. And 6 months later, because it was 6 months later, the earthquake happened. 6 months after arriving to California, the earthquake happened. I was a young photographer and I took photos that were eventually part of this story, multiple photos, and part of a book that they made. And that is how I became a member of the team that won a Pulitzer. But I think you got a glimpse of some of the stories behind the story in Quiltfolk and my career as a photojournalist, about my family, how it's important, and how faith is woven, and how the series of things that have happened in my life, I truly believe are God ordained. He has set my path. And I try to walk in obedience. I don't always walk in obedience. I fail sometimes. And then I ask for forgiveness and ask God to help me to get back on track. And He does. Do you plan to get it? Do you want to learn more about the other quilters and their stories and see how some of it relates to you? I think it's important for each of us to share our stories, to share parts of who we are with our family, with our faith, with our community. Yay, Jacqueline ordered hers. Wonderful. In a lot of ways, we will use our gifts and talents that God has given us to impact others. If you want to get the Quiltfolk issue, because it's, of course, not just me, there's a lot of stories in here, and you can use this coupon code to get 20% off. And it's only good until the end of September, so don't wait. You can either get one issue or you can get a full subscription still with 20% off. All right, Wilda. So Wilda got it. Fantastic. They mean more to me now that you shared the stories. Oh, thank you, Wilda. It does help to know more about the stories behind things. And it matters. Sometimes we hold those things inside and we don't share them with others. And then when someone does or says something unintentional because they don't know the full story, we can be hurt by it. So sometimes I think it's good to share. So Terry says she's been a subscriber for a long time. Yay! Terry says she's glad she learned the backstory. Fantastic! Awesome, awesome. Now, as I said earlier, there's always more to every story, right? But I want you to share your story. Are you going to be a part of the Beautiful Sister Quilt Together? I know several of you have already signed up, and many of you who are new are probably wondering, what is she talking about? Well, I have a pattern for the Beautiful Sister Quilt. I've had it for a couple of years. Several ladies purchased the pattern at QuiltCon. I think that was back in 2023. And I promised to make a course on it for us to do it together. And it's taken me some time to do it. And yes, the pattern does include the Beautiful Sister panels, but you can also use any other panel you want. You can create anything you want as the centerpiece for your Beautiful Sister quilt. We're going to meet once a week for 6 weeks. We're going to talk about the fabric, the supplies, the pattern, the techniques, the tools. Then we're going to talk about each block individually, how to make it. We're going to have fun and have a conversation about what story we want to tell with the quilt. What story about yourself, about someone else, someone in your family that you want to tell inside this quilt? Is it a sister? Is it someone who is a sister who is not a blood sister, a related sister? It could be a quilting sister. It could be a work sister. It could be a neighbor sister. It could be anyone that you feel close to. So I hope you join the quilt together. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me.